Hello, and welcome to the show. This is just a short intro before we begin the episode, which I'm sure you will enjoy. We have a few things to share which are specials this weekend. If you're a writer and love the process and inspiration of writing on a classic typewriter, you can experience this magic opportunity by purchasing your very own typewriter. We do also have vintage or antique typewriters. Or if you already have a typewriter and it's broken, we are able to repair it so that your writing process can be that much more beautiful and enjoyable. Whether you're sitting at home at a cafe or traveling the world, you can now be motivated to write anywhere, anytime. Next, staying on the topic of writing. If you would like to purchase my phone book, they are now published and available. The Narcissist Recovery Guidebook, as well as the Grand Soul Awakening calendar collection of inner child poems on friendship and healing, as well as Divine Love Lessons, a poetic love story of returning back to your core self and a healing journey of understanding your higher power, which has a touch of synchronicity, numerology, ascension patterns, spiritual insights to soothe the consciousness and support the ego into pure, authentic soulhood. And it's a great gift for yourself or for a friend who appreciates the art of poetry. Next, you can order the personalized art painting, which is perfect for birthday gifts and holidays. And it's just a great opportunity to become creative and to inspire the younger generation or adults as well. And you can also decide which kind of art pieces, which can be seasonal or biblical or a Disney character. So it can be anything that inner child find for. Next, tutoring is also available from grade school to middle school to high school to courses. We have both the math, reading, writing, essay help, resume help, college admissions, essay help, all kinds of tutoring. Last but not least, we have virtual ballet lessons and classes available for all ages and all levels. There are ballet bar workouts included, and all you need is just a little bit of space and a chair or something to hold on to. And this is going to be with accompanying classical orchestra music to bring a sense of levity and joy and just fun overall, while also strengthening the body and adding flexibility and grace to your daily posture. And I have a unique experience as I grew up performing at Lincoln Center with the York City Ballet, with my City Ballet, with Alvin, Ailey, American Dance Theater, and also at Madison Square Garden. So this unique mix of artistic expression has inspired me to create a whole list of ballet choreography, ballet classes, and to inspire people to come along on the journey to awaken their appreciation and their gratitude for body movement and body positivity. And I'm excited to share this with everybody, and everybody is open to join. It's available for everybody. And we focus on creating elegant movement to the rhythm of the music, which makes you feel comfortable in your own space, at your own pace, and in your own skin. And this gives you an opportunity to enjoy the journey of imagination, beauty, integration, and for you, a sense of gratitude for yourself, for others, for music, and for movement. Classes are in session and all are. And if you would like to have me on as a guest on your podcast and would like to be a guest on my podcast, please do let me know. And I am also collecting new interviews with upcoming. And for information on any of the things that I have mentioned, if you would like to participate in, or to purchase, or to just join the community, please send me an email at growth and grace mindset at gmail.com. After all of the logistics are out of the way, enjoy the show. Welcome to the Growth, Grace, and Gratitude podcast, where we talk about all things mental health, wellness, positive psychology, inner child healing, spirituality, and so much more. And today we will talk a little bit about immune boosting support for the colder autumn winter months, allergies in children, and anxiety with our very special guest, Dr. Anthony Salzarulo, who is a New York's holistic health doctor specializing in clinical nutrition, homeopathy, and detoxification, and he has a holistic practice for more than 25 years, teaching and inspiring clients to empower and heal themselves. And he's also licensed in chiropractic as well as physical therapy, and is a certified iridologist and certified biotherapeutic drainage practitioner. Wow, what a beautiful bio of all things healthy, holistic, and I love how so many of our listeners are actually on the journey towards bettering themselves, their health, their holistic well-being, and we do cover so many spiritual topics. So I thought it was a great kind of opportunity to invite you on the podcast and have a little conversation about such amazing things that you're doing. And so, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me. It's my pleasure and honor.
Yes, fantastic. And I do think as we're actually coming up to the colder months and we have the holiday season coming up, we have New Year's resolutions coming up, I think now is kind of a critical time for people to kind of re-examine where that they are in their health journeys. So many of us are choosing to prioritize self-love, self-growth, self-awareness, and with that comes, I think, a really great responsibility to take better care of ourselves so we'll be able to take care of our family, our community, and just to be well in tune. So when it does come to eating and the best foods that we can eat during this time, what are some foods, herbs, and supplements that are great for the colder months that are going to assist our health?
Good question. So, one of the great privileges we have in today's modern world is access via books and internet and podcasts and great teachers to the time-honored systems that have been around for thousands of years. And there's a wonderful reemergence of those teachings. And one of the great healing systems is Ayurveda, the science of life, as it stands for. And a great thing about Ayurveda is that it takes into account so many different parts of our being because true holistic practices and holistic health has to include all the parts of our being: mind, body, spirit, environment, of course, our daily practices. And Ayurveda takes this into account in such a deep and profound way. And I mean, it's been around for thousands of years, at least 3,000 years, some say more. And it was practiced initially by the Brahman class and the yogis. And then, of course, it worked its way out to the masses. So in Ayurveda, there's different seasons. Right now, they're represented in a different way, Vata, Pitta, Kapha. So right now we're in what's called Vata season. I recently put out a newsletter that spoke about this. So the characteristics of Vata season are that it's cold, there's it's dry, it's moving, so that's like the wind. It's very changeable, and those aspects we experience inside of ourselves during Vata season. And we sometimes feel very dry, chilly. We can feel somewhat withdrawn, like if you look at a tree, the sap gets pulled back into the trunk and into the branches. And so we experience this in ourselves. And one of the beautiful things about Ayurveda is they have practices to counteract these tendencies that we experience during the different seasons. So, one of the key things, because Ayurveda is about feeling this sense of all this changeability, and it's, if you look at the winter, it can be very windy. We tend to feel ungrounded. And so, what can we do to feel grounded? First of all, there's foods that are more apt or prone to balance the vata inside of us during the vata season. And those foods are, one of the key ones are root vegetables, like carrots, beets, the rutabaga, parsnips, jicama, sweet potatoes. Someone was telling me, a mom of one of my patients, saying, "Oh, my child, I made sweet potato soup," and they loved it, and they were a little agitated, and they calmed down. So soups are really, really, really great, and I have on my website some recipes, like a recipe for roasted parsnip and garlic soup. So these are, and herbs. The definition of herbs, because when people think herbs, they think I'm taking something and it's something maybe that a practitioner prescribed. Well, no, herbs can be foods, or herbs often are foods, like garlic is an herb, onions is an herb, basil is an herb, but it's also a food. So these different types of foods serve as healing herbs, and in certain times of the season, we're better suited for them. And then there's different herbs for the different seasons, and maybe we can talk about that during another podcast. Um, Practices to ground yourself, like meditation. And I like to speak about the 4-7 breath, breathing in for 4 through your nose, and then out for 7 through your mouth. Very, very, very grounding. And surprisingly, I teach this to children, even fairly young children, and they get it. And sometimes they do it with their parents, and they play a game and things like that. So if you think of the cold months as, okay, this is Ayurveda time, and what can I do to balance that? Then you can actually have fun with it. There's also ghee milk, which is a big practice in Ayurveda. I use a vegetarian version of that with coconut milk, and then or almond milk, or even you can use oat milk. And then for ghee, ghee is clarified butter, or you can use coconut butter for those who are more inclined towards a vegetarian practice. And there's certain herbs, like herbal teas. There's a vata tea. There's many of them, traditional medicinals, and banyan has a lot of different teas for the vata season. And then you can, find different mixtures. I tend to lean more towards banyan because one of their founders is and teachers is Dr. Vincent Ladd, who's a brilliant practitioner, and he helps to formulate a lot of these uh, different teas and mixtures for individuals. And so, yeah, that's what I have to say about the cold months. I mean, there's always a lot more. Stay stay warm. You know what's so great during the cold months, and it's also a great way to hydrate, is soups. All types of soups. I look so forward to the cold months to take in different types of soups. And you can use, of course, the soups with the root vegetables and have fun making them. And for parents with children, sometimes they make them together. And, there's children that some are picky eaters, so you have to sometimes play around with spices and different vegetables. But by and large, most children will uh, have soups, especially if it's tweaked in a way that they like.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Yes, I love soups. And I remember when I was younger going to school, my mom would always make me like pea soup, and it was
Mm.
delicious, and it just warmed up my body, and I felt less chilly, and it was so beautiful. I love that kids can also really benefit from soup. Just throw in some of those root vegetables and mix it up, maybe in a blender if you want to drink it up and then warm it up. It's so amazing. And it's so
Yes.
interesting how actually today is National Chicken Soup for the Soul Day. So I thought that's interesting kind of reminder about a holistic idea to also connect to the emotional side, because while food is fantastic and so important, I think another part of kind of holistic health is also to nurture our emotions, and that I think is also a great part of remaining
Yeah.
kind of opposite, because so often we have emotions that even children have emotions, and sometimes that's where temper tantrums come from. And I think like when adults are able to kind of deal with their emotions, that they're able to then be better parents for their kids. And especially how in this changing environment, you're having the NAHA movement, the Make America Healthy Again movement, that it's a big thing coming up, especially with the conscious families and the idea that we have to have clean water for kids in schools, and making whole food healthy again, making that a new trend. So I think that's a great thing for our society as a whole.
Well said. Well said.
Yes.
I
Yes.
agree.
And I guess next topic we can talk about allergies and children, because I personally actually did have some allergies growing up, and my parents had to kind of like have a trial and error thing where they kind of tried to put one food at a time in and to see like how I would respond, like if I would have allergies or not. And they kind of, I think they went to a homeopath doctor or something like that to help me as well. And 50% of Americans are obese, and 1 in 3 kids are pre-diabetic. So that's very stunning, and this does kind of show how children are affected by the environment. Perhaps like why do an increasing number of children seem to have allergies to foods and greater sensitivity to smells? And additionally, why do so many children get frequent colds? And what are some ways to potentially, hopefully, resolve and reduce this?
Yeah, that's a really great question and a very deep and profound question. And there's many different reasons and parts to that. So, a great homeopath that I studied with many years ago when I was early in my homeopathic training, he told me that he was in a part of Texas and the kids, there were so many of them that were allergic. There was a few species of trees that grew. And so a lot of the kids were allergic and they were getting all types of symptomology, sneezing, coughing, wheezing, hives, and many other allergy type symptoms. So he said, what are we going to do? Cut all the trees down? I mean, or tell people to move out. A lot of them didn't have that choice for various reasons, their jobs and finances. So what he did was work on their inner terrain. The terrain is the ecology of the body, the cells, the organs, the fluid, the microbiome. And what he found was that then these same these children that are in the same environment, then they start reacting much different to the trees and to the environment. So the way allergies are typically dealt with in conventional medicine is you have an allergy and then you take a drug to suppress the allergy. But that doesn't beg the question of why is the allergy present and why does it keep manifesting? Because I see a lot of allergy type symptoms and also eczema and asthma and hives and all types of skin things. So they'll tell me, "Hey doc, I got this test," and you see a test with a list of, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 things that these kids are allergic to. But the interesting thing is when you start working with their inner terrain and then they take that same test months later, they're only allergic to a fraction of them. So is it the thing out there? Because allergies have so much to do with the gut and the inflammation of the gut. And I mean, look at the reality of our world right now, and how we eat. And it's not just the West anymore, it's a whole entire world thing. We eat food that's processed, bleached, genetically modified, full of colorings, additives, preservatives, hormones, antibiotics, pesticides, herbicides, petrochemicals from the processed oils that we put in, and then we burn a lot of these oils through, frying them. And we have excess sugar, excess salt, and a lot of processed salt, artificial sweeteners, sugar alcohols. And this has a profound effect on our gut and the lining of our gut. I do a lot of different types of tests, and a lot of tests that I run can be done at home and they're not terribly expensive. But you see, I almost never see someone that presents with allergies that doesn't show leaky gut on the test, or it's termed as increased permeability. So when there's increased permeability, things are getting out into the bloodstream that don't belong there. Just like if you were sitting out in a gazebo or out in on your porch, and it's all fenced, it's all there's all screens, so you're inside and you can enjoy nature and the trees and look at the birds flying. But if you start to see bugs flying around and mosquitoes and moths and butterflies and all of that inside, then you know there's a breach to the screens. It's something they shouldn't be getting in. And this is what happens with our gut because the enterocytes, there's, the gaps, and that's a very, under normal circumstances, that's policed very well how those gaps open and close and things get through. And then what happens is, due to all of this processed food and other things, the gut becomes inflamed and then it becomes much more porous, just like the screen becomes porous. And then things get out into the bloodstream and they lead to a lot of inflammation and a lot of reactivity. And I think it's very troublesome when these children then, and adults of course as well, start getting put on all types of drugs when the what we call the upstream problem, because that's downstream medicine. The body has symptoms, drug it. This has symptoms, drug it. When the upstream problem is not being dealt with. And then of course there's so many different things you could do with homeopathy and what we call drainage homeopathy. Of course, making dietary changes. I love the Yucca app, and I tell everyone about the Yucca app because you can scan foods and you can see what's in there, and it gets a score, and it's very transparent. So I explain to my parents and my clients about this, and I do my very best to educate them, because if you eat and live a typical, you could say, American diet, but of course that's now pervasive throughout the world, you're going to get sick. We are beings of nature, and when you violate those laws, it's just you could even take it to simple like a car. You don't change the oil, you put in junky stuff, and then after a while, it's going to start not to run well. Well, we understand that on that basis, but somehow we forget about our bodies. And it's a garden. I always use the garden principle, right? If the vegetables of the garden are not growing right, it doesn't help to blame the vegetables, because the vegetables are downstream from the garden. So you say, okay, the vegetables come from the garden. Well, what are the needs of the garden? The garden needs enough sunlight, it needs enough water, it needs enough minerals, it needs fertilizer, it needs a soil that's healthy with a healthy microbiome, it needs to be weeded. And if it doesn't have that, it's going to affect the vegetables or the flowers or whatever is growing in there. And you then have to make those changes. Say, okay, it's not getting enough water, or a friend of mine, he's an avid gardener, and he had to cut down some branches because the sunlight wasn't coming. And then he checks the soil every now and then the vegetables respond to that. So the cells in our body are like, they're our garden. And so we have to start to ask, because the human garden needs enough rest, enough hydration with clean water, movement, sunlight, a diet that's anti-inflammatory and nutritious. Most of the food we eat, generally speaking, and those of us that become more, aware and educated than we don't, most of the food we eat is highly inflammatory, and it's also poor nutrition. And then also we have stress reduction practices that I was talking, like one of them is the 4-7 breath, and many others. And then, of course, detoxification practices. We have to do things to help our body detox. It is not designed, we have unleashed more than 120,000 different chemicals on this precious Mother Earth, Pachamama. And the 2003 body burden study done at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York showed that we all have a load, and then they repeated it for children, the body burden study, which was then published in 2005, and they found all types of toxins. It's also on my website. And they were just testing for several hundred chemicals. So we need to be aware of that, because then we bioaccumulate and things get in our bodies and they disrupt them. And then you can't solve the problem by just putting more and more drugs in there. You have to do these practices, and you can find so many wonderful practices in the time-honored systems. And I take great joy in educating individuals about how to do these things, and even just drinking water, more water on a regular basis is detoxifying. Getting enough sleep is detoxifying. Doing things like body brushing or a detox bath. I mean, there's so many wonderful things, and they don't even take that much time. And of course, there's teas and certain foods that help the body to detox. And I mean, all of these categories, that those could be, lectures within themselves. So once we understand that, oh, I have this garden, and the garden has stresses placed upon it, and when it's stressed, then there's going to be symptoms. And now what I need to do is start to look about what I need to change to get the garden back to its balanced state and to heal. And this is very important, because it's very costly. I'll tell you an interesting story. About maybe it was about a year ago, a client came to me. She says, "Doc, you're my last hope." She said, "My child," she says, "my child is just out of control." She says, and she started crying, and her husband was there. He was very emotional. She says, "I'm going to lose my job. My husband's going to lose his job." And this kid was completely out of control. in the office. He was pulling things, and she says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, doc." And I said, "It's okay. He's having a lot of difficulty regulating his nervous system." And then I said to her, "Tell me about your son's relationship to sugar." "Oh, he's addicted to sugar." And I said, "Tell me about other things, drinks, and oh, he likes Skittles." So I said, "Okay, that's a place for us to start because that is a drug. His nervous system is being drugged by that." So I told her things to do, and I said, you need to get rid of those things in the home." And he's going to refute it and maybe stomp his feet and throw little tantrums, but we're talking about, because he got kicked out of 2 schools and he was on the verge of getting kicked out of the 3rd school unless they gave him medications. And I spoke to her 6 weeks later and she said, "Doc, I have an entirely different child." And of course I gave her homeopathy and certain things that I have found to be very useful with the children, because this ADD, ADHD, and don't you, the children have tremendous anxiety. And so I gave her things, and now the schools, he's doing fantastic in school. The parents, the teachers are saying to the parents, "No, he's doing great. We don't think he needs to be medicated, and his focus is much better." So, we have to look at these things, and these are the challenges of today's world and in today's society. And, the holistic approach is absolutely necessary. And it's not as complicated as things as we think, because what we're really doing is getting back to our own wisdom. I tell my clients, you're here because something inside of the wisdom of your heart said, "No, no, 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 no. I know there's more to this picture, and I know that I can heal, and I know there's things that can be done." And then we get it on, all of us. So, getting back to the allergies, once you start to work on these levels, and then, Chinese medicine teaches us about the liver and the kidneys and how they have to, what they have to do with the immune system. And there's homeopathy and herbs for that. And once you start to put this together, you see a whole different presentation, and you see kids that are constantly sick that now have rock solid immune systems. So that was maybe a
Fantastic.
long answer to your question. Yeah.
Fantastic. A very well integrative answer that you mentioned all the stuff that is so crucial. It's exactly true. And it's such an also beautiful message, the resilience of kids. And that's also so lovely that they're able to withstand and shift if they're given the tools earlier on.
Oh,
And what a
yes.
gift.
Oh, yes. Children heal the quickest. You know why? Because they have less time on this planet putting in all of that. They don't have as much bioaccumulation. As we grow, if we don't understand these practices, and then we eat all of that, problematic food, and then we bioaccumulate, and we have a big burden in there. Because I test for things. I test for heavy metals. I test for, environmental toxins. I test for mycotoxins. Certain viral testing. It's all in there. And you better believe it's the driver of so many common problems and autoimmunity and all the things we see. And when you start cleaning that up, wow, the healing just opens up. Yeah.
Wow, yes. And it's so interesting that so often our anxiety is kind of like a message to how our body is not able to do properly, because I remember my friend was going through kind of health issues, and at one point she had too much anxiety. Anxiety can actually be an indicator to how we're not able to detoxify properly. One of my friends who actually went through a lot of anxiety, she was having trouble with focus, and when she was able to kind of clean up her diet and she stopped eating, like you mentioned, processed food and sugary foods, and she went back to the basics, like just whole foods. So that's like fruits, vegetables, fish, like the basic foods. And her anxiety really diminished. So I think it's so interesting that when people are anxious, they have to also take into account what their diet is, because that could actually be huge for the person too. Like the gut, the
Yeah,
gut, gut brain connection.
absolutely.
It's like huge.
Yeah, I was at a course many years ago, and the instructor had the brain and the gut, the organs, and he said, "This is not two things. We're going to call it throughout." He said, "These are not two things. We're going to call it the gut brain. If the gut's affected, the brain's affected, and if the brain's affected, the gut's infected, affected." And now there's a lot of literature about the microbiome and how it affects the brain and the moods. So you're absolutely right. It has a lot to do with all of that. All of that.
Yes.
And there's a lot of famous studies. The one done with mice, and poor mice, they stressed them out with turning lights on and off and sounds and all that. And they took those stressed out mice and they did a fecal implant to you could say normal behaving mice, and then the mice that got that implant started showing signs of all types of anxiety and what have you, because they had the microbiome from these mice that were had induced anxiety. And there's many other studies that are supportive of that. So yeah, that's another very big piece of it, the gut brain
Yes.
connection,
Yes, totally. And
enteric nervous.
yes, and I did so much article writing before about the nervous system, the gut-brain connection, and also how the vagus nerve plays a huge role in the whole fight,
Yeah,
flight, and even on the healing journey, it's a crucial thing. So that's a really great like thing to learn about itself as
absolutely.
well. It's part of the healing journey. And what do you like most about your work? Because you're helping people, kids, adults. It's such a beautiful thing to do to share your expertise. What is the thing that you really enjoy about? What do you like best about your work?
Well, yeah, what I like best about my work is the heart connection to humanity and to the earth as well, of
Yeah.
course. It's our birthright to experience vibrant health. And when I see people come and bring their families and bring their precious ones, and we work together, and as soon as they come in, they're part of a community. They're part of a community of thousands of people, and they're also part of the community. See, they tell me, "Oh, doc, you healed my child." I said, "I didn't." The child has that healing force, and in Ayurveda they call it prana, in Polynesian medicine they call it mana, in Chinese medicine they call it chi, and um, um, homeopathy they call it the vital force, in chiropractic they call it the innate force. That's there, and when we do certain things and we work together and we work as a community, then you unleash that force, and then healing is inevitable. And to see people live into their birthright and become the healthiest version of themselves, wow, that really turns me on. And to have that heart connection and to experience the humanity in others and to share the heart space it's just it's a wonderful experience. And then also to do things to help Mother Earth in her healing journey.
So beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Doctor. And thank you for sharing your beautiful spiritual gift to help the children of the world and to help them learn more about a holistic, vibrant way of life.
Well, my pleasure, Ari, and um, thank you for the work you do, and let us continue on this endless journey.
Yes, amen.
Okay.